Hey, how's it going? Welcome back, my wonderful wise ones. Today is a very different video. I needed to get out into nature to make this video. I got my little notes with me as I am a professional YouTuber. But basically today I want to discuss what's happening in the West. If you don't know, I live in Japan currently. Today I want to discuss why hedonism, the philosophy of hedonism, has destroyed the West, okay? And just dissect hedonism as a philosophy. Now, I made a philosophical video about nihilism, okay? And that's probably one of my most popular philosophical videos. That was when I was just getting into philosophy. I was very naive then. I said quite a few things wrong. Like Nietzsche and nihilism are tied together. Of course, there are some crossovers, but that was inaccurate. Since then, I've read all kinds of works from Stoicism, Taoism, Buddhism, to Nietzsche, Socrates, and Plato. So I want you to know that I've done my research to make this video, and I'm pretty sure most of you won't care, but this is very important to me. Now, today I came to a very simple park, mostly because I just don't like people and I'm very introverted, but it's kind of symbolic of this video because I truly do believe simplicity is divinity. Now, Nietzsche was quite an interesting philosopher. I'm not a fan of Nietzsche. I'm not a fan of his way of viewing the world. I'm much more leaning to the metaphysical, the idea that, realism, hyperrealism is what we make of it, what we manifest, what we bring into reality, the idea of Plato's perfect forms, Stoicism. That's what I'm trying to create my own personal philosophy around, to, disintegrate and destroy tribalism, and to bring unification and kind of blend the political systems of left and right together in a centralist ideology, because I do believe that it's gotten a lot worse and it's become a real issue in the West. That's why I just don't care about politics, or I don't care about identity politics. I try not to get myself wrapped in that. And for some reason, people have this destructive view that being in the center is somehow wrong. But actually, to create a new system, a better system, we need to blend ideas from the left and the right together. For example, we do need to fix the culture, and the right is correct about that. American politics, UK politics, Western politics, okay? There is a fundamental ideology that needs to be unified, but at the same time, the left might be right about how we actually govern our society in some aspects, where there is this idea of consumer capitalism that has completely gone insane in, since the 60s, where we do get the elite 1%, and economic factors do create outcomes, okay? We need a way to unify the people so there isn't this disconnect. So there isn't this disconnect and jealousy and, kind of toxic nature that everyone wants to bring down other people, and instead have a more unified field. It's relative poverty, okay? And you might have heard of other people talk about that, but I honestly do believe we need to blend both systems to create something new, and that's what I'm trying to do with my philosophy. The book is currently being constructed, so do bear with me on that, but do check out my Wise Philosophy playlist if you're interested. But do bear in mind, some of those videos are a bit dated. But Nietzsche was right in the fact that we can't actually have different ideologies, philosophies, without it relating to the philosopher, okay? The idea, humans are plagued with this human nature, okay? Our own desire to judge things as good or bad, and our own desire to change things. That's why I think, philosophies like Taoism are very important, and Stoicism, because they detach the objective and the actual personality, the ego, and, fundamentally focuses on the nature of the world. And I think that is very important. I think it's very important that I address that, because it's important to understand where I'm coming from, why I believe hedonism to be such a destructive philosophy and such a destructive mindset, but it is so prevalent in today's society. It's absolutely everywhere. You cannot escape it, and it's just become truly disgusting if you ask me. Now, the idea of philosophy has its roots in very old stories that might not even be true anymore. The idea of the Greek king Odysseus and the forbidden lotus, okay? Basically, hedonism is what modern day society is all about, okay? It's about excess. It's about always wanting more. It's about hustle culture, social media, hierarchies and Instagram followers and, fame online. I'm part of the problem, but at least I can see it. I'm not saying I'm any better, but at least I know what it is. Hedonism in modern day Western society has become so prevalent that I don't think even people are aware of it anymore. And especially newer generations, they can't even escape it. You have a whole generation of iPad kids, people raised on social media, and social media can be really useful, and the internet is amazing for all kinds of things, but we don't use it, we don't utilize it in a way to better ourselves. At least many of us don't. We use it to distract ourselves, to numb ourselves, because it's easy dopamine, it's an easy fixation, and everything becomes hyper real when it's not actually physically present. And that's kind of the current society that the West has manufactured for themselves. High brands like Gucci or Louis Vuitton or whatever the hell it's called. All of this is garbage, okay? It's absolute trash. Of course, you can like it if you want, but the idea of status has become so prevalent in Western society. Celebrity culture, it's the material versus the metaphysical, okay? And that's what society has lost, especially Western society, with the death of religion, with the kind of influx of societies mixing. We're losing culture, we're losing what's actually important to us, some kind of bond, some kind of fellowship like religion. That's also become fragmented, and people instead put their time and energy into companies and corporations that don't actually care about them. So how do we actually address this, okay? How do we stop being a slave to our desires and everyone being caught up in, the media machine, content consumption, and just this tribalism that is prevalent in the Western world today? Well, we need to actually address the ideology, the philosophies that have basically been, imprinted onto us that are destroying our very lives, okay? We need to return to the fundamentals and create something new, a unifying culture. And we need to educate ourselves on philosophies that do benefit our lives, that do align with the natural. Now, I'm not a rich man, I wouldn't say I'm a poor person either, but I don't make that much from this channel, to be honest, when you compare to like, a high paying corporate job, for example. But to be honest, I never need that much to be satisfied. I don't care about material things. I don't care about what others think of me, to be honest, that much. I do to a degree, but to be happy, to be, present, everyone needs to follow their calling, okay? Everyone needs to follow their purpose. We need to let go of this obsessiveness when it comes to material gains and wealth. So you can basically show off your life on Instagram, on social media, all the places that you've been to and all this stuff, instead of actually living them, instead of actually living in the moment, reaching for eudaimonia or enlightenment or self-actualization. It's all about, a facade. It's living this kind of fake husk of a life. That's what I see in the Western world now, most people doing. Post-World War II, there was so much isolation, easy ways for governments to seize more control and power over their people. Now we can't even get out of, corrupt political systems, and the people have become weak and domesticated, never willing to actually form a revolution or any of that in the West. America hasn't actually been around that long. And there was a golden era of America where everyone looked up to it as the standard quality of living. Now I feel like that's fallen. But I honestly do believe that if we don't address the underlying issues, okay, if we just, glaze over everything, and, you know, just live in echo chambers, media bubbles, and all this stuff, instead of actually addressing the ideologies that are destroying the spiritual, metaphysical connections that human beings in the modern day and age have, mostly because of hedonistic philosophies and ideologies that have been imprinted onto you by media, by mega corporations. You know, we're never actually going to solve the issue. And in this video, I also want to break down Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as that's kind of key to understand why hedonism as a philosophy has completely destroyed Western civilization and why hedonism is destroying civilization in general. The access to, you know, shelter, for example, having just a simple roof over your head, a place to sleep, you know, clean air, access to water, all of this kind of stuff, okay? Most of us have met this need. If you don't have this, then just those simple things themselves will actually satisfy you and bring a lot of gratitude and contentment to your life. But, you know, that's not even on our minds most of the time because we have already reached that level. The next is safety needs. Again, something that most Western society has. We have, you know, infrastructure of healthcare, we have security, you know, we have laws in place. And of course, most people have some access to employment where they get some form of currency so they can, you know, keep that level of security. Now, a lot of people are kind of at this level where they're just, you know, getting by and they're feeling secure, but still in the West, okay, in Western civilizations, most people are beyond even the safety need, okay? Now we're on the third step. Now we're on the third step of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that is love and belonging, okay? Having some kind of social connection, some kind of social structure like your family and friends. Most people to a degree have that, you know, even if you don't have a partner or children or a significant, you know, other or whatever. Most people have, you know, parents, okay? Unless if you're much older, most people have siblings. Most people have some kind of level of support. So Western society is already at this, you know, quite a high point in the hierarchy structure, okay? Considering compared to a lot of ancient human history, which, you know, wasn't even that long ago. If you just look at the frontier times in the, you know, American West, which wasn't that long ago. But like I said, when a lot of these Western countries were being founded, they weren't anything like that. They were basically tribal lands with nothing, okay? Just complete anarchy, tribal warfare, and, you know, just basically at the kind of security, safety needs level of the hierarchy of needs. But now everyone in the Western civilization at least has love and belonging to some degree, you know, that form of social connection. And then we get to the two big ones, okay, which is esteem, okay? That is the second level to the top. That's if you have freedom. For the most part in Western civilization, everyone does have some level of freedom, even if they don't like to admit it. Some self-respect for themselves, some level of status within a community, you know. It could be a very small community, just like your group of friends, for example, or at your school, at your workplace. Everyone has this to a degree, even if they don't like to admit it. And of course, that can vary, you know, massive amounts. Like, say, for example, if you're a leader, a mayor of, you know, like that city or state or whatever, or you're some kind of author or a public figure, your status and, you know, responsibility, your status and responsibility kind of scales with, you know, just how human culture works. And then we have the final point, which most people don't have, and that's where hedonism actually stops this from happening, which is my point, and that is self-actualization, okay? This is a point of human consciousness that we do need to achieve as a culture, as a society, if we want to, you know, stop this tribal warfare, bring a collectivist community back into Western civilization and just the world in general, to have peace and order and security. We need to reach this level. But hedonism, which is the fundamental bedrock of modern day society, that's the point of this video, of the why hedonism philosophy is bad, why hedonism philosophy is the worst philosophy to have next to nihilism. That's because it fundamentally stops the progress and the pursuit of self-actualization. And that is the desire to become the best that you can be, reaching for something spiritual beyond yourself, the metaphysical, the transcendent. You know, that's what I'm trying to capture in my own personal philosophy. It's the idea of the Übermensch in Nietzsche's philosophy, although I think he went a little bit too kind of far with it. And his was much more of an individual idea, which could be good, but yeah, I just don't think it really works that well. Self-actualization, in my belief, comes from pursuing virtue, which is the complete opposite of hedonism. So in this video, that's what I want to break down, is hedonistic philosophy, why hedonism is bad and why hedonism is the worst philosophy and why hedonism is destroying the West. Basically, pleasure being the highest good that you can reach, which I think is fundamentally wrong. I think we should be viewing virtue as the highest good, the highest pursuit, because that does lead to self-actualization. And also, pleasure is not stable, okay? It's not anything that you can actually manifest for a long period of time. Just like anything in life, you have to have a philosophy that actually reflects the fundamental nature of the universe, which is in transit. It is in constant flux, okay? It's in constant movement. So therefore, the idea of pursuing pleasure is completely irresponsible and stupid, because it's only a temporary thing that cannot actually sustain you. Unlike virtue, which actually can, because it's aligning your moral being with the universal, with what is natural, what is good for the human nature. And we as human creatures are social animals. We are building these hierarchies, we are building these societies for a reason. It's innately in us. We're going about it in such a wrong way, which leads to tribalism, that leads to war. Just look at what's going on in the world right now, simply because idiots are in charge of certain countries that have completely tethered off from the universal, and they are just, you know, acting out of ego, acting out of, you know, fear and all of these, you know, emotions that we human beings can experience in transit, all of these emotions that we experience from the metaphysical, but we need to learn to actually control. So hedonism falls into two categories of pleasure, pleasure being the highest good, okay? And that basically is active pleasures. This comes from your actions, eating, you know, watching something that maybe you shouldn't be watching, but you know, it's quite a fun time while it lasts. Active pleasure, yes, the satiation of, you know, lovely desires, okay? Everyone enjoys them, you know, in moderation. Of course, I'm not saying you can't enjoy them. You know, gaming, whatever you enjoy in life, of course, you need a balance. But the point of hedonism and the point of modern day society and why it's destroying the West and modern day society in general, why hedonism is bad for modern day society, it's because it's prevalent in everything that we do, everything that we consume. Bombardment with, being bombarded with ads constantly on every single social platform, people living a digital lifespan, not connecting with each other, social media being programmed deliberately to separate the human connection. These dating apps don't work fundamentally because it's programmed in a way that's, you know, against the human nature, that's against, you know, how we should actually be interacting. You know, when you know someone amazing might be just one swipe away, it's ignoring the spiritual and being a slave to your basic needs, you know. I mean, I don't like philosophers, he's not really a philosopher, people like Jordan Peterson who always go on about, you know, staying Peter Pan. Oh geez, I'm gonna stay Peter Pan forever. The young men these days are staying Peter Pan forever. Oh geez. Can't really do a good Jordan accent, but you know, there's some truth to that, because modern day society, everyone has a God hole in them, okay? Everyone is missing their God hole, and they're trying to fill it up with empty pursuits, you know, pursuits of the flesh, pursuits of desire that come from the metaphysical that aren't even, you know, aligned with what naturally is a human. That's why it gets out of whack. That's why a lot of people suffer from mental health issues. I know, as I also suffer from anxiety, but I deal with it in the best ways that I can. Not being very open-minded, tribalism comes from, and the reason why it's become so prevalent in the last like 10 years, and that it's my number one mission of this channel, of this, my philosophy, is to destroy tribalism. And that's simply because people have lost the ability to be open-minded, and you know, this selfish attitude that is everywhere, especially in Western society. This kind of, people talk about white privilege, which I think is hilarious, but it's now become just this human privilege that we seem to, everyone has, basically, that just separates us from our natural desires. There's a reason why humans value self-control and all of this kind of stuff, even though we've kind of forgotten that, because nature has its own limits. And the next form of pleasure for hedonism philosophy, that is the highest good for them, and that comes from static pleasures. After eating a big old Whopper, a big old mac and cheese Whopper,
you feel contentment, you feel full, your tummy is full, and you feel nice and sleepy, you feel at one with the world, okay? That is a form of static pleasure, even though it's not actually static, but that's what they call it. For example, you've just bedded the woman of your dreams or something like that, and you feel very satiated. I think that's a word. But, you know, that just shows you that this whole philosophy falls apart, and that's why the Stoics hated hedonism so much. Well, I wouldn't say hated, but they definitely looked down on it. And that's because it doesn't actually work like that. Human nature doesn't work like that. We always know that the grass is always greener on the other side. You know, we are always in a constant need for more. We can never be satisfied. That's kind of the curse of humans, unless if we align ourselves with what is natural, kind of like Taoism philosophy, being one with the universe and all that kind of stuff, or Buddhism, for example. So static pleasure doesn't really exist, and it can only exist for a short amount of time. And someone could argue that can exist your entire human lifespan, but you constantly have to, you know, look for it. Now, I just want to end this video on a few more hedonistic ideas in modern society that I think is destroying Western civilization in particular. And first of all, that's obviously, you know, group thinking, playing sides in identity politics, all of this stuff. It is a form of, you know, community, which everyone is looking for, but it's actually a form of engaging in hedonistic desires, because you're always looking for one-upping, you know, the other team, the other side. You know, it's like, it's literally a game, it's like a sport. And instead of actually, you know, being open with your ideas, open with sharing different views and ideologies and coming together and forming new ideas, the idea of Hegel's dialectics, you know, creating something new from different emerging ideas. Instead, we are just trying to one-up each other on small, stupid little arguments, and that's also what's destroying Western civilization. It's a form of hedonism. The same with drinking culture, the fact that the government allows alcohol just to be used, even though it's one of the most poisonous drugs, and it's somehow socially accepted, and we have built this drinking culture up through thousands and thousands of years, and it's somehow looked upon as, you know, being good, being normal, okay? And if you turn that down, then you're the weirdo. Also, the fact that our current society doesn't have any shame embedded into it. Shame doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Shame can be a tool to utilize to stop unvirtuous actions, to stop actions that aren't aligned with nature. Also, men and women aren't really responsible anymore with their own actions, leading to, you know, life. The most important thing, you know, in this universe, conscious energy, creating self-awareness and life, that can just be, you know, splunked out because no one is actually thinking about their actions. Again, you know, an example of hedonism destroying modern day society, because people aren't responsible for their own actions and they just try and escape their own actions, their own responsibility, and also the way we view death, okay? Instead of looking at death as something, as a natural part of life, as something that we all have to come to terms with and accept, we have this culture, especially in the modern society with social media and all that stuff, you know, the massive amount of pressure on 20-year-olds, I feel that massively, you know, the idea of turning 30 is somehow the end of your life, the way that we hide our old people and sick people, instead of celebrating life, instead of celebrating what nature is, memento mori, amor fati, we have this disdain for aging. And I think the philosophy of wabi-sabi, which is a Japanese philosophy, you should look into it. I think that is a much more natural way to look at the aging process and all that stuff. So Western society has basically become a disgusting cesspool. It's become a disgusting loop cycle of never-ending dopamine, being a slave to your desires, bombardment with, you know, media and ads telling you what to think, what to believe, social media conditioning people into being, you know, hedonistic with their thought patterns, their belief systems, all of this stuff. And it's all based around the individual and the selfish needs and their desires, instead of the actual community of human beings aligning us together to be stronger and better. So there you go. That is why hedonism has destroyed the Western civilization. I really needed to make this video because it's been on my mind for a long time. I hope you enjoyed it. I doubt many people will watch this, but I do hope some of you enjoyed it. and this will be a pivotal point in my upcoming philosophy and movement. And if you are interested, please email me. Check out the RUER playlist, that's for movement, but for philosophy name, I haven't made it yet. So keep an eye out, look out for all of that stuff, and talk to me in live streams or email if you are interested, or leave comments down below. But I think it is important. I am not going to stop making philosophy videos because they are the most important things to me. So yeah, if you do enjoy the gaming stuff, please open your mind and give this type of content a try as well, because I do blend the both together as well. And remember, the unexamined life is a life not worth living. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.
It may seem difficult at first, but everything is difficult at first. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor.